Hey, what's up, guys? It's your girl Twana Tells, and I am here with the lovely, the awesome Detroit's own Miss Jewel Tankard. So let's get started.
Yes, girl.
So
let's
how
do it.
did?
First of all, your face is beat though.
No, your face is big.
Thank you, girl.
We were
I was
talking.
just like, okay,
thank you.
okay,
I like that
hair.
lash.
Okay, right?
I was so like, long as you got a good lash and a good lip,
Girl,
you can finesse
seriously,
everything
yeah,
else for
everything
real.
else. Yeah, exactly.
So, how did Jewel Tankard from Detroit? Let's start from the beginning. How did Jewel Tankard from Detroit end up in Tennessee?
Girl, so, okay, you know my fine husband right there, y'all just saw. No, but basically that's what happened. I grew up, born and raised here, and I really had a great upbringing. Detroit is really an amazing place. I don't know if sometimes people realize it, but I think going away and coming back and making impact, you realize what we really have here, and it's really pretty special. But anyway, I met my honey 18 years ago.
In Detroit?
In Detroit.
Yes, okay.
In Tankard. He was doing a concert. And I felt like he was looking at me, girl.
Oh, were you in the audience?
Yes, I was on the second row, and I was like,
I caught his eye.
I put my little lip gloss on extra, right? And yeah, he was looking at me, and during intermission, he came up to me and said, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. You're supposed to be my wife."
Are you serious?
Serious, honest to God.
Wow.
Went in the bathroom and shouted, and I said, "Jesus, don't play with me, Jesus, don't play with me." And so we talked all that night. He took me out on his tour bus, gave me a tour, and we talked about 4 o'clock in the morning. And that was 18 years ago.
So did you feel like it was love at first sight?
Oh,
like
for
when you met him,
sure.
did you feel like, okay, this is my soulmate?
I did, but I know at the time, honestly, I don't know if it was lust or love, because I was like, ooh, he chocolatey thick, ooh. And I mean, I definitely knew I was highly attracted, okay?
So that's the most important part right there. You were attracted.
Just real honest, a real transparent moment. But yeah, I did. I felt like I really loved him when I first saw him. And physically, spiritually, mentally, everything he was talking about, I was like, I'm all about that life.
Okay. So with him being an artist, apparently, and traveling with you guys, how was it? How were you able to, date? Because like long distance relationships is hard, especially if you start off long distance. So how were you able to?
Yeah. So basically, what we did was well, I told him because I'd been married before, so I wasn't really trusting my hairs on the back of my head and what I was getting in my
He had to pass the test.
He had to pass the test, girl. So I told him, I said, you're going to have to come back up here and meet my spiritual parents and my parents before I even go out on a date with you.
Wow.
And he came up a month later.
Wow.
He kept his word, and they met him, they drilled him, they asked tons of questions, and they liked him, and we dated for about a year. And so he came up, I would say he came to Detroit probably about once a month until we got married.
Wow. And how long after you guys met did you?
It was about a year.
Really?
Yeah.
So you mean to tell me when you're dating a guy, in a year, he should know whether or not
Oh, girl, let me tell you something. Men are hunters. They hunt.
Yes.
They go after what they want. So I was telling a woman, if a guy is in a relationship with you and it's over a year, he knows usually within that month or two if he wants it. The kind of man you want. You want a decisive man. Don't nobody want no man like 1 minute he wants you, the next minute he don't. That's dead.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, a real man is gonna know either he wants you or he don't.
And you said you guys were married 18 years.
Juicy.
Wow. How do you keep the marriage going? How do you continue to date within a marriage and keep it going for 18 years?
You know what I think is so important is for you to keep your individuality. I think a lot of people, when they get married, they kind of lose themselves. They don't make decisions without their spouse. They don't do anything. And I think there's a healthy balance of that, of course, but I think it's real important that whoever you naturally were as a person, that you continue to evolve and grow as a couple, but also individually. Because if you stop that, that's when it gets boring, that's when it gets mundane. But if I keep growing and he keeps growing, then it's attractive. Growth is attractive.
Yeah.
I think it only gets boring when one spouse stops growing, which is why when you start dating, you want to make sure that you kind of understand what their core values are, what their desires are, to make sure that that's something that's going to really work for you.
Right. You just made me think of a really good question. I actually had this conversation a couple weeks ago with my sister who was just recently engaged. Do you think that two people with two different spiritual beliefs can come together?
I wouldn't do it. There's no way. There's no way. I couldn't, and I love everybody.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, because God loves everybody. God created everybody. But I know that I'm a born again believer. I love Jesus. And so whoever I marry,
Has to be.
they have to be there. Otherwise, eventually, you're going to run into issues. So he's going to the mosque, you going to the church. Eventually, because it's natural that you're going to want your spouse with you, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that natural?
That's true.
And so you can do it. You can go to your place of worship and not have your spouse. But ideally, that's why before you actually marry, you should make sure all those things are in alignment. If they're not in alignment, I think you have to be careful about not being too desperate or thirsty to get married, because sometimes we fall in love with the image, but we don't consider enough about the things that are really on the table. And do we have enough core values in alignment to really make this sustainable and really work, and not just be married, but I mean thrive.
Yes, like marrying your best friend. So, which brings me to my next question. You have this successful marriage, you're happy, you guys go on reality television and do this show on Bravo. Were you nervous? Because, you know, they say that sometimes reality TV can mess up marriage.
Yeah.
So at that time when the show was, were you, like, did you have any doubts at first?
No, I mean, I was definitely nervous, but I felt like it was something that we were called to do. We knew we were supposed to be on TV well before Bravo found us, so to speak. We knew that we were supposed to be, just because our stories are so unique and they have a lot of dynamics that are very relatable. Ben already had 4 children, had been married twice and divorced. I had 1 child, had already been married before. So now we talking about blending these families together, right? And so, and then we said we're not doing stepchildren, we're just gonna do children. But there were still a lot of issues that we had to overcome. Baby mama drama, how we raise them, you know, just all kinds of things. And so once we kind of, not mastered by any stretch of the imagination, but once we finally kind of worked through some of those things and still were able to stay together as a family and love each other, is when we said, you know what, we need to share this story with other people.
Wow.
Because most families are probably blended, right?
Yeah.
And most have those issues. That ain't my mama, that ain't my daddy, they ain't gonna tell me what to do. You do more for them than you do for them, you know.
My mama said you can't hit me and put your hands on me and tell me what to do.
All of that, right? So it takes a lot of understanding and a ton of love to work through a blended family, but it can happen. So I was nervous though, but I did feel like we were called to do it.
Wow. So now you guys are also, your husband, in addition to being a musician, he's also a pastor, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So you're the first lady.
Yes, girl.
So when you guys decided to do this reality show, how did the church, what did they like, how did they receive it? Were they like, okay, well, I don't want my first lady on TV?
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of that. We definitely had some leaders that were very concerned, but this is what we had to work through. And this is what I had to work through individually. First of all, you have to ask yourself, what are you afraid of? Because reality TV can't make you do anything that you wouldn't already do. If you do something extra, that's on you. Don't nobody put no gun in your head and say, do this or do that. That's first. Second of all, why would you be afraid to live your authentic life before people? Because to me, especially in this day, people can relate more to your life than they can to you just teaching a sermon.
Yeah.
Show me who you are when you're mad. Show me who you are when you're angry. Show me who you are when you disappoint. I want to see those emotions, and I want to see you live it out. The scriptures are great, but can I see you live it out? And so I had to get over that too, because I was one of those people like, oh, I keep it real. No, I had an issue with that first season. When it got thick in that family, I was like, cameras, y'all need to go. They were like, oh no, this is what you signed up for. This is the meat and potatoes. This is what is going to draw people in. And so once I realized that our real life issues and challenges and overcoming them were just a part of the human process and how much it impacted people's lives, I was like, okay, God, this is why you said get rid of all that religion and all that pretense and all that. You don't want nobody to see that. If that's who it is, why you don't want them to see it? Because you shouldn't be living 2 separate lives. So whoever you are on TV and whoever you are at home and whoever you are at church and whoever you are right here should be the same people. And if it's not, then we got some problems. So all that, I think reality TV is very, very good for the world. I think it's good for the body of Christ. I think it's just, I think, and I do realize there's been some negative connotation to it. But when you really look at the meat and potato of people showing their transparent, authentic lives, good, bad, and ugly, I think that's a powerful message. And I think if Jesus were in the earth right now, he would do it.
Okay. Now, would you say that they actually portrayed your story accurate? Because
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people get on reality TV and then when it aired, they're like, oh, it was editing. No. It was, that's not what really happened.
Yeah, and that can happen, but ours was pretty much true to story. Absolutely. It was true to story. The edits we agreed with it. I mean, of course, there are a couple things here and there, but at large, they were just showing us who you were,
right.
And even when people say, oh, they edited, and I'm not saying they can't, but for the most part, it's going to portray who you really are, period. I mean, you think about it, the camera's rolling 14 hours a day, and even if they cut it up and slice it a few different ways, eventually who you really are is going to come out.
Okay. And now I was a fan of the show. I actually watched the show. What drew me to the show is to see a black family on television and not fighting and not pulling each other's hair out and not, doing all this crazy stuff, but, showing a positive side of us that, we are a family, we are successful, we have problems, but we work together. One thing you talked about on the show was you always talked about financial freedom. And you talk about that on your social media too. Can we talk a little about your financial freedom and how do you help the average everyday woman, the single mom who may be working 2 jobs or who may be, on unemployment right now and trying to figure out her next step? How do you help that woman? Because I think, that a lot of us in Detroit and women in Detroit, like, how do you help that person become financially free?
Good. So let me tell you a little bit about my background, how I got there, because I think that backdrop is important. So I grew up downtown Detroit. My parents were the first African Americans to have a business downtown Detroit called LaGrange Records and Tapes. And they used to have some of all the Motown's best come in, Peebo Bryson, Phyllis Hyman, Minnie Riperton. And I grew up in this, and because they had such a successful chain of record stores, we had an amazing life. I grew up with his and her Rolls Royces, his and her Mercedes, Volvo at 16, housekeepers, cooks, drivers. That was my life. But at 19, we lost everything. And I was devastated because I was like, how do we go from all of this to literally within 6 months having everything repoed? And when I started asking my mom a lot of questions, everything she said went back to, your father said this, your father thought this, your father didn't want to do this, your father wanted to do it this way. And this is when I started kind of getting an inkling that my mom was not trusting her financial instinct. Because every woman, every man, everybody, every human being has a financial instinct. The issue is most of us don't cultivate it, right? And so because of this devastation, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to keep living this lifestyle? And at that time, girl, every girl in Detroit, well, not every girl, but the crew I was running with, you wanted a dope boy. It was
my God.
Yes. It was glamorous, girl. So we was going to the club. That's when they had cheeks.
That's back when they actually used to buy you drinks and take you out all night. Now these guys.
Honey, all of that. We was going out on the yacht. That's when Porterfield Wilson had his marina on Connor and Jefferson. And
wow.
So anyway, we dating. I'm dating a few dope boys. And this one paying for this one paying for that. I mean, we got a racket going almost, right? We're not selling the drugs, but we hanging with the boys that sell it. So of course it was fun and exciting and glamorous at first until the indictments started coming down, the arrests started coming down, the deaths started coming down, the murders. And I remember one that I was dating was a drug kingpin. And I was watching TV and he was dating this other girl in Southfield that owned a nail shop. And some kind of way, the phone would start ringing. I'm watching, oh my gosh, such and such has just been indicted. I'm like, oh, snap. I'm calling them, what's going on? So just that whole drama goes on. So during that drama, I'm like, okay, I'm going to church, Jesus. And I'm going to pray him out. Honest to God, this is my story. I started going to church. Started going to Great Faith Ministries. And about 6 months into that, I realized that was not God's plan for my life.
Wow.
And I had to start asking myself some real questions. Jewel, you went from your daddy taking care of you to men taking care of you. Why can't you take care of yourself? And that's when I changed my major. I was at Michigan State, then I transferred to U of M. changed my major to economics because I said I got to get this money thing down. I watched my mama suffer. I watched different women in